Hello and welcome to Teenagers Untangled, the audio hug for parents going through the teenage years. I'm Rachel Richards, and this week I have a very special guest for us to talk about grit. No, it's not Angela Duckworth, if you know who she is. She became famous for her TED talk about the concept of grit, which is it's the thing that gives people a mental toughness that enables them to keep going and even succeed in the face of adversities. So what we're going to talk about today is a program set up by someone different. Her name's Dr Louise Randall. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're a general practitioner of medicine in England, because we have people listening all over the world. So we need to say, I won't say GP, just so they understand. And I've read through your website and what you're doing. And the organization is called Grit. And you decided to set it up because you were seeing a number of young people who were struggling with their mental health. What actually was happening? What were you seeing?
Well, actually, a little bit of a longer story behind that because I set it up with three different hats on. One as my own experience, from my own experiences, as my in my adolescence. Second, as a GP, and thirdly, as a parent. And my own experiences as a teenager were probably quite unique. I had an eating disorder and spent a long time out of school, in and out of child and adolescent units, and it wasn't a particularly easy experience, to say the very least. And I think back then, we're talking about 30 years ago, it probably was less known more about how adolescents interact with peers and the need to fit in with the tribe, and how particularly girls take on emotions of other people, and things that I was exposed to at that point made me behave and do things in a way that perhaps I wouldn't have done. And that ended up having consequences for my later life, in particular wanting to do medicine. And I sort of carried that with me and initially started out. I was very, very fortunate to be given an opportunity and a chance to study medicine by Royal Free Hospital in London. And initially started out thinking, I'm going to change everything for adolescents. I'm going to do child and adolescent psychiatry. But then once I got there, felt actually I just want to put all of that in the past. I'm now having a great time in life. There's other things I want to do, and got on with my life. And then fast forward another 15 years or so, and I'm now a part-time GP with my own family, 3 children, and we are starting to see quite a lot of young people coming into the surgery with problems like self-harm. And there wasn't really anywhere for them to go at the time except refer to CAMS. There wasn't any interim. And I
CAMS is
felt quite
the is
child and
the
adolescent mental health services, yes. So
yes.
that's what we have in the UK to support children and adolescents right up to the age of 18. And it's quite oversubscribed. There's a long waiting list at the moment, and it's definitely been under-resourced. And from my own experience, I felt things could be done differently to support teenagers in a different way. And this was compounded by the fact that I had also started using social media, and to put it mildly, was quite horrified at what young people could access, which was the same as what I had seen behind closed doors in a very, very, very unique environment. And my concern was, if a young person can see this in their bedroom, I am not surprised that we're seeing what we're doing, because knowing how that made me feel and behave at the time, I can understand why this would be causing such a change in behaviour amongst young people. And this is terrifying, really, that this is out there.
Wow, this is really interesting because I do actually know people who have been supporting their kids through eating disorders, and it's harrowing. And can you be a little bit more specific about the sorts of things that they might be accessing that might be, exacerbating the problems that they're experiencing as a teenager?
Of course, of course. I will talk about self-harm, if that's okay. But what happened to me in hospital is that there were a group of people that were self-harming, and there was an encouragement that to self-harm and to do it better. I put that in inverted commas. by using ways which would exacerbate the extent of the injury. And what I then saw on social media was exactly the same thing happening, almost a glamorization of self-harm. And this is the way you deal with emotions, and this is how you cut deeper. And not only that, at the same time, an advert for a Gillette razor came up because it was the way the robots work, and you're just picking this up. And yeah, these were young, mostly teenage girls talking about their experiences, and almost a coolness to it. And I was horrified. So you don't know the consequence of that, what that will mean for you as an adult. You have to live with that, even when you don't want to be reminded of difficult times. And just, yeah, I just felt
Wow.
very, very um, driven to do something about it. Initially, I wanted to.
Just before we move on, I'll just say that we do actually have an episode on self harm and how you can support your teenager, if they begin self harming. But yeah, we have. I mean, it just didn't seem to be a thing when I was at school, so that's very worrying because we are seeing a lot more parents coming to us asking about self harm and how they manage it.
It's really, really difficult. And I think you're right, it wasn't a thing as much back then. I think it went on in different ways. It wasn't that it didn't happen.
That's right.
Um, it did, but there certainly is a lot more of it happening now. Um, and yeah, I think for any parent going through that, it requires a certain level of understanding and support for the parent as well.
So you have personal experience of this, and you've seen
Yes.
what's coming in through the doors and trying to help kids who are having to be referred to CAMS. Which for people living in England, we know that this is a vastly underfunded, overworked service. It's very hard to get to see somebody. It's very frustrating. So can you explain a bit more about what you've set up?
Yeah. So I think one of my concerns was that I, and it's not to downplay self harm, but actually, we don't really know as a society what a normal teenager is. The study is still quite new in the adolescent brain, but it's actually very normal for a young person to experience quite high levels of unpleasant emotions, including anxiety, anger, and really to be trying to find out who they are, what their place is in the world. It's quite normal to rebel against your parents, to reject them as you are trying to find out who you are. And at the same time as recognizing emotional distress and applying that support, I think it's also really important that we understand that we don't want to over medicalize it. So we want to be able to encourage the young person to be able to explore their feelings and learn how to deal with them in a healthy way, remembering that the adolescent brain is being shaped. So what we do now has a huge impact on the future. Therefore, that creating those healthy pathways to manage difficult situations is absolutely vital. And I wanted to give them a safe space to speak about how they felt, give them an opportunity to express themselves physically, understanding a lot of what we feel happens in our body. Just talking about it sometimes doesn't always help. And sometimes you can't because you don't have the words, particularly as a teenager, you can't articulate how you're feeling. So
I
sometimes
love
just
that
being in.
point. I love that point because that's something we talked about in our self harm episode is that a lot of the time, even adults struggle to
Yeah.
identify and express their emotions. So for a teenager, this can be incredibly difficult because they're not even sure what's going on.
And then to be told, well, there's something wrong with you. Actually, maybe not. Maybe not. But actually, that's not what we're there for. We're there to really see you as a person. We wanted to bring in coaching at the heart of it. I spent some time abroad as a junior doctor working in South Africa, and they have this beautiful saying, Sawubona, which means I see you, my ancestors see you, everything sees you, and how can I serve you today? And I love the equality of that. That's what I want to bring in. That this teenager is equal to us. They are not lesser than us because they're younger or because they're experiencing emotional difficulties. It's how can we best support you with what you're going through. We're not there to diagnose, we're not there to say this is right, this is wrong. It's what are you doing for you? What's the right choices for you? And then ultimately through that, we developed the Growing Resilience in Teens, the GRIP program, which uses non-contact boxing, which is a great way for teenagers to experience physically what we're trying to teach them emotionally. It makes it tangible. So much psychology is, yeah, I can do that, it's great. And then when it comes down to it, it's so much harder to do it in practice than it is to go through it in your head. So we want to give them that physical experience, the visualization of it, and a way in which they can apply what they've learned in the boxing ring through non-contact boxing out to their life in a way that will hopefully give them small positive changes, which then go on to lead to bigger changes.
So talk me through that because I can't visualize what exactly would be going on in these sessions.
Okay, so it's a 12-week program, and essentially a boxer gets in the ring, and it's all about adversity. It is about facing your opposition. Now, with boxing, you don't go up against somebody who's 7 stone heavier than you. It's matched equality wise, experience, etc. So there is equality there. You are able to win, and it's also possible that you may lose. And they have a great saying in boxing: there's no such thing as losing, it's only learning. No one can fight your fight for you. And boxing is perceived as being violent. It's all about getting aggression and anger out. And it's not. It's an emotional game of managing how you feel, having strategies, and watching what the other person is doing and maintaining your cool. So it will start off is you will be just assessing range. You know, the first round is not very much happens. You're just sussing each other out. You don't go all out at it, and it's that sort of experience we want to get. So we divide the program into the 4 corners of the ring, with the first corner being the doctor's corner, which is what you would have in any boxing bout. You have the ringside doctor there, and that represents your physical self, looking after your physical self, your nutrition, sleep, exercise, but also tuning into your body. How are you really feeling right now? And if you're feeling really angry or anxious, what's that about? And then you've got the cathartic aspect of being able to hit some pads or bags or whatever to help process that, but really getting them to feel those emotions in their body and what that means to them. Then we come across to the referee's corner, which is, of course, about keeping you safe. Those rules and regulations are there to make sure that it's a level playing field and to minimise injury. And that to us represents putting in healthy boundaries and your values. What are you going to fight for? And if you can start understanding your values and what's really important to you as a young person, you can then start making the right choices in your life for you and will lead a life that hopefully will line up to those values and
I
lead
love that.
to other things. And then we come to your home corner, which represents your safety. Who's in your corner? Human beings have, I think, Karen Horney, a psychotherapist from many years ago, described the 3 main things that human needs, and I really like this. It's a sense of belonging, which includes feeling loved. It's feeling safe, which will mean physically, in relationships, and with yourself. And it's also being valued regardless of what you achieve or don't achieve. It's just you as a person. And it's about what does that home corner, that safety aspect look like? Who are the people you can go to where you feel you can be yourself, and who do you trust? And also remembering they can't get in the ring and fight for you. They're there on the side supporting you, but that's okay. And they may be able to give you their advice, but this is still for you to deal with. And then finally, of course, it's the opposition, which is adversity. And how do you show up? Are you, if you think of a boxer, their walk on, how they turn up to the weigh-in? Of course, there's a lot of drama and things that go on around it for the entertainment side, but it's in essence, they're going to stand up, face the other person eye to eye. They're not going to be hunched down in a corner. They're not going to be overly aggressive. Well, you'd hope not. It's all about that mutual respect and being ready to to gear up for it. And just changing your physical stance can have a huge difference on how you show up to the world. And we talk about, beliefs that come in, self-limiting beliefs. Can you do this? Can you not do this? If you may have come from a background where no one's gone to university, there's a story you're telling yourself, on my family don't go to university. Is that right for you? Is that really what you want? What's holding you back? um, just challenging that, and getting a young person to feel equipped to understand that they can face adversity, they can move through it, and they can grow from it as a result, and they'll be more equipped when it comes their way next time to deal with it. So
I
in a
love this. It sounds
nutshell,
like it's kind of inoculating them by giving them adversity in a ring and being able to
yes,
kind of learn how to, what have I got in my toolbox that can help
absolutely.
me?
Just going back to those corners, what do you need first of all to get there? And you need those three corners met, and getting you to think each time, what is it? What is it that's going on for me? And of course, it takes practice. You can't just do it once and then think, yeah, I'm done. It's a constant, lifelong, probably for all of us, learning process.
All of us. It's really interesting because I have four daughters, two are bonus daughters, and the two bonus daughters both love, like one of them does craft, one does Thai boxing, and my other two daughters love martial arts like jujitsu because of the grappling. They like that physicality, that sense of, and I think what's really interesting is that using your body in a very physical way is often something that isn't offered to girls. Do you
Mm.
do you have on your program both boys and girls?
Yeah, we have a mixture of both, which is really lovely to see, and all sorts of different backgrounds as well, which again is really, really lovely to see, and lots of different reasons why people will come to us. But yeah, it's
And
very, very
how?
empowering.
Yes, it sounds. I mean, I would love to do it. It sounds brilliant. And how do people access your services? How do they get onto this?
So we've been lucky enough to partner up with the NHS in our area, so they can access it via their GP. We get a lot of school referrals as well. We also offer one-to-one coaching, which is in our partnership with the NHS. And we have coaches going to schools to support young people. And they use the Four Corners methodology, but maybe not so much boxing unless a young person particularly requests that. But young people can self-refer, parents can refer. We try and make it as easily accessible for everyone to be able to access if they can
And
get
it's
to
you've
us where we're based.
and you've ended up with the boxing, but I think it's evolved, hasn't it? You tried other things.
Yeah, well, initially when we started, we tried yoga, we had mentoring, and we had equine facilitated coaching, all of which were fantastic. But it was the boxing that seemed to be accessible to everyone and seemed to hold the young people. But it's four corners. There's four corners to a lot of things: four corners to a football pitch, four corners to a rugby pitch, four corners to a stage. You could apply it to almost anything in that respect. So yeah, if a child's got interest in something else, we'd be okay. What can we apply it here, and get you to really understand who you are and what you need in order to face the challenges that you're experiencing.
And have you got key issues that you tend to see time and time again with teenagers? Because you've talked about self-harm, but
Mm.
underlying that, I mean, one of the things that seems to come up a lot in schools where that are battling with behavior issues is they talk about, dysregulation, where kids just explode and they punch teachers or they and that there seems to be not enough ability to regulate themselves. What are we to do to help these kids?
That's a really interesting question, because I think sometimes with these children, we tend to not recognise that they're often experiencing quite a lot of emotional distress. And when you look at the backgrounds of some of these children and what they're dealing with, sometimes they may be responsible for looking after their siblings, sometimes they may have a parent that's not very well or is not able to parent them. Then it's absolutely understandable and totally valid for them to feel anger. I think there's a little bit of a narrative in society that we shouldn't feel angry and we shouldn't get anxious, it's abnormal. And both are actually very valuable ways in which we can feel. So we incorporate, there's a fantastic GP, Dr Trevor Griffin's in, I think he's down south somewhere, and he's developed emotional logic, and we incorporate a little bit of that into our program. And his feeling behind this is that this isn't an anger issue. We have a lot of young people present with anger issues. So it's not anger issue. Anger is it's energy. It gives you a fuel to go out there and change something. The problem is it's how you're going about trying to change it. So it then comes about upskilling the young person to be able to voice their anger, to be able to express what they're feeling and be able to get what they need from it, rather than expressing the anger in a way which then results in more challenging situations for them to deal with, such as being expelled or suspended and so on.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that it's very important, obviously, to protect everybody else in a group setting, but that so you do need boundaries. But maybe would you be saying that teachers and parents who are confronted with this, because we've done something on anger as well, helping your
Mm-hmm.
child who may be feeling extreme swings of anger, which is normal in some teenagers, that they need to let the child know that they're seen, that they understand that there's a feeling in there. And I mean, how would they sort of move beyond where they are at that time?
So I think it would be getting to the root of what is making that child angry and actually seeing the anger and the child as this is great. This is great that you're passionate about something. What is it? Essentially, when anger happens, it's because something's been threatened for us, whether that's actual or perceived. And it's threatened something that's important. And when it's important, it is attached to a value, something we believe in that is
Interesting.
important to us. So if you can work out with that young person, and that might require some just being really curious. What is it that's triggering it? What is it that's important? If it's friendship, if it's this, it's okay, right, fine. So I'm hearing that fairness is really important to you. And you feel that when that's being challenged or things aren't equal, that's making you angry. Great. What do you want to do to bring that fairness back into your life? How are you going to do that? Because if you're expressing it that way, in which you're doing, it's totally understandable to feel how you do, and it's not okay for you to express it how you do. But what is it that we need to do? What skills do you need to be able to get that equality and fairness back for you? If you can do that, then you'll be able to work with the young person to be able to get underneath the anger and hopefully address some of the issues that are contributing to it.
Yes. I love that because I think one thing I've realized bringing up kids is that nothing is linear. They don't suddenly learn something and then they know it. And they all learn different skills at different stages. And part of socializing them to function well in a society is to be able to say to them, oh, no one, you haven't learned how to do that yet. That's okay. That's a skill. It's really hard. And let's practice it. And showing them that, and I love what you say about values, because I think underpinning a lot of these things is a sense of what is your value, and that's a good thing to have. And once they understand that and what it is that's upsetting them, then they can be much more in charge of their own feelings. Like, okay, they're not, there's a value there that's being challenged.
Mm-mm. And teenagers, I mean, they're fantastic in that. They're very opinionated. They're very valued. They're not quite so worn down by life or like, okay, well, that's the way life is. They're very, no, this is right, this is wrong, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to change the world. And that's actually a fantastic quality about young people to be able to nurture rather than just squash it all down.
Yes, yes. So, what I'd like to do now is just ask you, given all your experience and
Mm.
the program that you're running, what sort of advice would you give to parents? I've got people listening in 155 different countries, so they can't all access your service. But I know a lot of them are dealing with the sorts of problems that you're talking about. What key bits of advice can they use to implement in their own home life that would make a difference?
Oh gosh, I always find this slightly cringy when people ask advice because I've got four children of my own, two teenagers, one almost a tween, and
Wow.
a toddler. So, and I am always very conscious of not. I'm not an expert.
No, 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 no,
This
none of
is
us
from
are.
experience,
No.
and um,
Actually, I tell you what, that the whole thing about this podcast is we are not experts. You don't need to be an expert to give other people support and help. What we need to do is we need to be able to share our own experiences and how we can help other people.
oh, right. So my advice would be, and it's probably, I don't know if parents would want to hear this, but actually you've got to come to yourself first of all. And if you think about the ring analogy that we do with teenagers, what we want them to do, we have to do ourselves. So first thing would be, again, look at your physical state. How are you? If you are, we use a mnemonic HALT. I don't know if you've heard that before. The
No, I
hungry,
haven't.
angry, late, tired. It's I think it's developed in the aviation industry, looking at pilot error, and 80% of incidents happen when someone's either hungry, angry, late, or tired. So
Interesting.
if yeah, the kids love it because it's so simple. If
Yes.
you're feeling hungry, if you're feeling angry, if you're running late or you're tired, don't have an important conversation with your young person at that time because it's just not going to go well. You're not going to
Yeah,
be there. You're not going to be calm.
I can get
It's
behind that.
going to be really challenging. And also, again, are you looking after yourself physically? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you neglecting your self care? But tuning into how you feel before you get ready to address these important conversations with your teenager. And then obviously coming looking at your values, what's important to you as a parent. So much conflict arises because the values are clashing. And it's not that you've got a young person that's being difficult or disrespectful. It's just that your value as a parent is now different. And your teenager's value is going to be socializing with their friends, trying to find out who they are. Their friends are more important than anything, and fitting in is really important. And they're going to leave wet towels all over their bathroom floor because they're
In there.
disorganized, and that's really, really annoying. And you're like, ah. Um, but it's really coming, okay, so what really, really matters to me as a family? What do I want as a parent, as a mother? What do I need? And sometimes
100%.
it can be simple as like it's time and respect because I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed and fraught with running you here, there, and everywhere. And I just need to say this is important to me, it's important to you. Where do we meet in the middle? And then again, your own safe space as a parent is not your teenager. You need to find friends that you can offload to be truly yourself. Rather than say your behaviour is really irritating me. That's just not going to go down very well. And if your teenager is distressing, of course that's going to be distressful for you. But you don't want to put that additional pressure on them that how they feel is affecting you because that might close them down. They feel I don't want to let them know because it's just going to upset and worry them. If they know that you can offload and look after yourself, they'll feel a lot more comfortable about opening up to you. And
Mm,
then yeah, just doing those first of all and thinking about tone of voice, how you do it, how you challenge something or address something. And conversations aren't always easy. It might not have the outcome you want, but you are showing your young person that it's okay to have disagreements and still love them.
I love
So
that.
yeah,
That's absolutely everything we talk about in this podcast is spot on. And I think what's really interesting is that the more we're prepared as parents to acknowledge that something's happened. So, for example, you get annoyed about something. We're normal. This is not, you can't
yeah,
be regulated all the time. You are going to get angry. But by being able to say, oh, wow, I'm really sorry I exploded then. I was, that this is what was behind it, and I'm sorry it affected you. The more that we can acknowledge that we experience these emotions and then talk to our kids about them, the more we give them the opportunity to go, oh, I'm not broken. It's a normal thing. And I saw
yeah.
a man talk the other day who was saying that his brother died when he was young, and the only
Mm,
time he ever saw his parents show emotion was when his brother died and at his funeral. And he said he'd grown up with all this shame about this,
mm,
like the fact that he did feel emotional about things and didn't really know what he was supposed to do about it. So it's not a, it's there's a difference between being too emotional and just dumping everything on your kids because that
mm, mm.
scares them, and being able to process your emotions and say, oh, I've done this. That wasn't, that wasn't the best way, or that I've been feeling this way, which is why. And that gives a voice to them to say, oh yeah, I feel
Mm-mm.
that too.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
yeah,
mean, you're absolutely right. It is that balance of getting it right, of being able to show your own vulnerabilities as a parent. And also, I think there's also, we all were adolescents, and adolescence is a challenging time. And we don't, it's about being kind to that adolescent self in our, what
yes,
would our adolescent self have wanted? How can we have parented that? And if you can do that for yourself, you'll then be able to do it for your teenager. It's probably not as complicated as we think. Well, that
no,
makes it sound easy because it is difficult because we're human and there's so many different other things coming in. But it, at the essence of it, it is all about that connection and sense of belonging.
yes. And tomorrow's a new day.
Tomorrow's a new
Go
day,
wrong
indeed,
today.
indeed.
Just say I love
Yeah.
you, get them to go to bed. Dr. Louise Randall, it's been just fantastic talking to you. Thank you so much. If people want to find out more about you, how would they go about finding you?
They can go onto the charity website, www.gritcharity.org, and there's some information there. They can contact us through there, and we can do our very best to get back to you. I'm sure we'll be able to respond to any queries that you may have, for sure.
That's brilliant. Thank
But
you
yeah,
so much.
thank you very much. It's
I'll put a link to you on my
yes.
website.
Would you also put a link to, I think you might see it on the website as well. There's a fantastic blog written by someone who talk about the letter your teenager can't write, and it's written
Oh,
about the fight. It's
yes.
really, really beautiful. And I think any parent is struggling right now with just that clash, if they could read it and just get some comfort in knowing that this is normal, this is okay, you're still going to love each other at the end, you're still going to come through, and you're going to end up with probably a beautiful adult who's able to say thanks for being there despite all that I threw at you.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yes, I completely agree. Brilliant. Thank you so much. I'll put that in the podcast notes and on my own a link on my website. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Louise. It was so lovely talking to you. And yeah, best of luck with Grit.
Thank you very much, and thank you again so much for having me. It's been a real privilege. I have to say, I absolutely love your podcast and would definitely be directing any parents that are struggling towards
Thank
it
you.
for them to hopefully get some advice from you.
Thank you.
Thank you.